Time once again for the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. With you as always, Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, NFL.com, columnist there at NFL.com. Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star, columnist there at the Kansas City Star. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. And we've got much to talk about as the Chiefs pick up their first loss on the season. What are our biggest takeaways from this game? What are their chances now for the number one seed? Is the end of the streak actually a good thing? No more undefeated talk. Can the offense actually improve this season? Has the defense been exposed now? Seems like we've asked that one a couple of times, but they keep not getting stops. Quiet day for Travis Kelce and DeAndre Hopkins. Is this the new norm? Xavier Worthy, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We'll cover all of that. Where do the Chiefs rank amongst the best teams in the NFL now with this loss? And we'll, cover everything that happened in the game. We're doing it all right now here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is the sports columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by David Starnes Allstate Insurance, covering all the important things in your world: home, business, life, and even the fun stuff as well. Motorcycle, boat, ATV, you name it. Get with Dave and he'll have you covered. You can give Dave and his crew a call, visit them online, or stop into any of their locations, including North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. Elevate your coverage, elevate your confidence, and drive worry-free. Don't put those insurance needs off any longer. Get with Dave. He'll give you peace of mind today for the things in your life most important to you. Now, here are the hosts of the Best Chiefs podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro.
And thank you very much, Curtis. We do appreciate it. Beginning a new era, at least in this season. The Chiefs after a loss.
No. The new era is our intro.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
That's right.
I'll take that. Yeah, we just keep getting better, We're just trying to get a little bit better, right? Like 1% better every day, like Andy Reid and every head coach says, just getting a little bit, but we clean some things up, whatever other coach speak you want to include in here into the middle of things. That's what we got going on here, right? Big time additions here to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. So yes, thank you to our buddy Jeremy who put that together. And of course, Curtis with the vocals on said track. Let's dive into the first loss of the season. Jeff, you had the Bills winning by 40. Didn't quite come that big.
Is that what it was?
You did.
I think I was close. I think 20. What did I call it? 27-21. Pretty close.
Yeah, you were pretty close. You were pretty close for sure. What's your biggest takeaway from this?
Biggest takeaway is, look, I think the Bills are the better team right now. We'll see if that matters in January. That's my takeaway. I felt like you look at the way they won time of possession, the way they won the yardage battle. They had fewer turnovers. They made more big plays. Their defense was more physical. Like all the ways you can outplay the Chiefs, they outplayed them. And I thought the Chiefs played actually fairly well, to be honest with you. I know some people may say, well, this wasn't their best game. I thought it's the game they've been playing all year long, and they ran into a team that just could play it better than they could. So that's what I think.
I think that's a pretty good breakdown of it. They did. They got outplayed playing their style of game. Sam, what was your biggest takeaway?
Well, one, I think there's been overreaction to the result of this game. I mean, nobody, at least that's probably listening to our podcast, needs to be reminded that this regular season result has not really factored much into the playoffs. It does matter for the number one seed. It does have an effect on that potentially, but I think the result of this game is being overblown. But for the specific game itself, for all that happened in the game, and I agree with Jeff's assessment of like what happens within this game, it still, to me, comes down to one decision to Sean McDermott that he gets with 2.5 minutes left. That is, which superstar quarterback do you want to have the ball in his hands to end the game? Your own or the opposition. And I just think too frequently over the last 3 years, we've sat here and we've talked about that Andy Reid has made the opposite decision of the one that Sean McDermott chose, which Sean McDermott said, I'm going to go with my guy here. I'm not going to say, hey, we trust our defense. I'm going to trust my superstar quarterback to make a play. And by the way, the Chiefs fooled Josh Allen on 4th down. They fooled him into thinking they were running man-to-man because they often run man-to-man on 3rd and short and 4th and short. Josh Allen sees the way they're lining up and says, this is man-to-man. I've seen this on film. This is what they're running. He even said after the game, I thought they were in man-to-man. The Chiefs fooled him into a zone, but guess what? When you choose a superstar, sometimes he makes a superstar play. And that's what Josh Allen did on that play, which is a lesson for why you choose your own quarterback rather than the one standing on the other sideline and keep Patrick Mahomes not involved at the end of the game.
Yeah, I'll tell you what my biggest takeaway is right here. I agree with what Terry said. No pass rush is concerning. I'll go beyond that, and I've said it on the radio show a couple of times. You know, you've got a couple of first-round picks invested in the defensive line, and George Karlaftis and Felix Anudike. You're paying $32 million a year for Chris Jones, and you're giving them a boatload of help with blitzes, and they didn't sack Josh Allen once. I mean, that is, you just can't put that kind of resources into it and not have it, not have it perform. I had some people say, "Well, what about the secondary?" I'm like, "What do you mean? 7th round pick Najee Johnson? You know, are we talking about 4th round pick Josh Williams? Are we like, what you invest in has to perform, right? It's great that L'Jarius Sneed was able to come through as a 4th round pick. It's great that Jalen Watson was able to come through as a 7th round pick. And I understand why they walked on L'Jarius Sneed, and I think it was the right thing. And unfortunately, Jalen Watson's gotten hurt. That means the other people that are making the money got to step up. And the other thing is the rest of that defensive line, Derek Nottie, Michael Dana, Tershawn Wharton, and I'm forgetting one other, and Mike Pinnell. They were all free agents, and they chose to bring them back. And for good reason. They were 2nd in the NFL in sacks last year, right? So they said, we're going to stay the course. That part works. We're going to keep the band together, and we're going to make it happen. And maybe we'll talk about Charles Omenihu a lot today, and I'm sure even more on Friday, because the hope is that he'll be back. That is a big loss. There's no doubt. But they were getting after the quarterback the first 6 games last year, much better than this, and they didn't have Charles Omenihu then.
Yeah,
that is crushing to me on this team, because it needs to play complementary football. And when they don't get the quarterback down, when they don't get the defense, get their other team's offense off the field and get themselves on the sidelines, that's less time for the offense to work. So there are problems with the offense. There are problems in all the spots. There are successes on both sides of the ball too, but not tackling the quarterback's a big problem.
It's that elite defense you're talking about?
Yeah, I know. Listen, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think it's a very real point to make. And Chiefs fans don't want to hear it. You're oftentimes the guy that tells them that, but I'll echo what you're saying. Right now, I don't think they're elite. I don't think they're far from being elite. I think Sam's point about the score or the outcome is getting way too much pub, like, oh, they lost, so now everything's horrible. That's not the case. But they have, to your point, Jeff. I mean, you say it once, it's like, okay, the defense couldn't get the stop, but they bail them out. So we think, it's all right. 260 yards is all they gave up last time out. It's close to the Broncos, but 14 points, 260 yards. That's still a good defensive day. If the offense would score, we wouldn't be talking about the defense. But when it comes time after time after time, and then they hang almost 400 yards, and they do go over 30 points for the first time since early in 2022, yeah, I'd say the defense is off right now. I'd say they've exposed the Jalen Watson injury pretty well now. They're exposing that they can't pressure the quarterback. And I'm okay with you saying that they're not elite. I still think they can be elite. I still think they're not far from being there. But I think it's important that Andy Reid understand what you said, Jeff, more than anybody else.
Yeah.
Because they had not fallen into the trap, but I think they had been given the security blanket, like against the Baltimore Ravens. If we don't score, that's fine. Just don't turn it over, right? If we don't turn it over, the defense will get it done for us. And they did. Last year, they did in the AFC Championship game against the Ravens, and they could lean on that. I think right now, and this I think brings up Sam's point, ties into his point about, you got it, and they didn't really have the 4th down. They had a 4th and 1 at their own 29 was the one time that they had a shot to go for it. Otherwise, all their other 4th downs are 4th and 8, 4th and 9. But I think yes, Jeff, he needs to understand that the defense isn't as good as it was, and he is going to have to put more back on the offense, and those guys are going to have to start doing their part.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at, to your point on the sacks, Soren, I mean, Josh Allen or the Chiefs they recorded a sack in every regular season game last year, and then they did not sack Josh Allen in the playoffs. They recorded a sack in every regular season game this year, and then they didn't sack Josh Allen. Like, this is been a Josh Allen thing. And look, Jeff and I have been talking for a while about running quarterbacks and that they give the Chiefs some problems. It's, to me, always been not just the guys who can run like for yardage, it's the guys who can scramble and extend plays. And we had this conversation on Friday. The Chiefs are having trouble getting pressure when they don't blitz. Chris Jones has the lowest pressure rate of his career this year, and they're double teaming him when the Chiefs don't blitz. I mean, he had one pressure according to Next Gen Stats when he got double teamed in like 14 snaps. He got double teamed on passing downs last week. When he was single teamed, his pressure rate was like 24%. So guess what teams are going to do when the guys you're talking about, the Karloftises, the Mike Danas, the Felixes, like when those guys are not putting pressure on the quarterback, the other team is not going to fear him. And this matchup, as far as guys double teaming Chris Jones, first of all, it's a thing that most teams do, but we're going to see it to the extreme in the playoffs. If these two teams play again, like the Bills are acutely aware of that stat I just mentioned, and that's going to become a significant part of their game plan.
And here's what also happens when you have mobile quarterbacks. When you're chasing them around, guess what? You get more tired. And I said this back on Friday. I said, this is the kind of game that the Mike Pinnells, even a guy like Nick Bolton, who's obviously a more downhill player, it's a tougher game for them to play in. And if you watch the video of that Josh Allen touchdown run, look who's about 5 yards behind Josh Allen as he's going to the end zone. Mike 69, Mike Pinnell trying to keep up. It's a tough matchup when you have guys like that who can extend plays, who can create plays, who understand that dynamic. And I'm starting to think that Chris Jones is starting to get tired. Yeah. The more I watch him play, he's playing a lot of downs, getting double teamed a lot. He looks like he's not as fresh as he was when the season began, which it shouldn't be.
The Chris Jones playing time thing has been talked about a lot as a compliment, but I totally agree with Jeff. I mean, I think the Chiefs need to ask themselves if it's costing them on a per play production, how many snaps he's playing. I mean, when you look at his snap total, particularly compared to other interior defensive linemen in the league, like they don't play at the rate he does. I'm trying to on the fly here look up his exact snap count this year. Let's see here. Give me a second, because he's been about like 80% or something this year. 81% this year. That's a lot of snaps for an interior lineman.
Yeah, it is, and I think they could use and that was the hope, and that's why I put up the Uche comment. The hope was that, okay, now they've got some more depth, and especially let's hope add in a Menahu, a healthy Michael Dana, and now you can get more rotations and get guys fresher, and maybe there's still time for that to happen. Again, it's just one loss, right? They're only 9-1. There are still games, and they get Carolina and the Raiders back to back, so a chance to maybe incorporate all those guys back into the mix and figure out some rotations.
Just one more quick point on that. The only time Chris Jones has only been above 73% once. Wow. And so 80, that just to put the 81% in perspective, it is a lot of snaps that he's.
Well, let's throw in George Karlaftis played one more snap than he did. Granted, not an interior guy, not carrying as much body weight. I understand your point, but they've got kind of an issue all around. Like they've got all these guys, they need to play them, right? That's
Uche played 5 snaps.
I know, but
he's still here.
To your point on Karlaftis, Soren, 83% of the snaps this year. Last year was at 75. Year before 64. Like he's at a career high number 2. Like we know Steve Spagnuolo will use his depth if he believes he has it. This is Steve Spagnuolo telling us he doesn't think he has any depth this year on the defensive line. And guess who was beating that drum all offseason? This podcast was. They did not sign a single defensive free agent in the offseason.
Yeah, and I'll point out that Uche had, I think, the second or third highest pass rush grade for PFF. Very small sample, obviously, with only 5 snaps. But you've got to find a way to use him. And we talked about how this doesn't look like your typical Steve Spagnuolo defensive lineman, right? Is there a disconnect? Like the GM went and got him, and the defensive coordinator is like, well, he doesn't fit. I think they've got to find a way to make these pieces fit. Sam, we touched on this a little bit, but the number 1 seed. Where do the Chiefs sit now for the number 1 seed?
So ESPN Analytics has them at 52%, Bills at 34%, Steelers at 9%. I think the Steelers is a bit high there. The betting market has the Chiefs at -180, Bills at plus 240, Steelers at plus 900. To me, I think that's about right. Because, and I know this might surprise you guys, the metrics still have the Chiefs with a significantly easier schedule than the Bills do going forward, and it's because they play the Panthers, they play
Raiders.
The Raiders, and they play Cleveland. Like they've got 3-week teams as well. So I think that's about right, considering even though they lost the tiebreaker, they still have one fewer loss. It's basically a half game advantage going into the final third of the season here. So I think this also shows you that it's tight enough to where if the records were even, this would favor the Bills.
Yeah, Jeff, I mean, they have no more margin of error because the loss came to the Bills. Where do you think the number one seed stands?
I think they're both going to end up, the Chiefs and the Bills are going to end up with 14 wins each, 14-3. I think the Steelers are going to fade out because their schedule is too tough. And I hear what Sam's saying about the schedule, but I don't know how much the stuff he's looking at takes into effect strengths versus weaknesses. I look at the Chiefs having 2 more losses.
None, Jeff. It just is the quality of opponent. It doesn't take into the matchup at all.
Yeah, and so I'm looking at the Steelers, the Texans, the Chargers, and the Broncos down the stretch in a very tight window in December. All teams with physical fronts, all teams with at least 2 really good pass rushers, all teams that could wreck the game in the same way the Bills did. As good as Josh Allen played in that game, and he certainly was the difference, the other big thing I saw was how much the Bills were able to pressure Patrick Mahomes with guys who weren't the same caliber of T.J. Watt or, Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson, people like that, Joey Bosa. So to me, it's like those games are going to play heavily in the things we've already seen before. And all those teams have quarterbacks who can make plays against the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think, the schedule is going to be a big part of it for sure. Absolutely. That's part of it. It is just the Bills and Chiefs, right? Like, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
See the Steelers schedule?
I think it's tough, but I mean, they were supposed to take a loss to the Ravens, I think, in a lot of people's mind, and they didn't do it without even scoring a touchdown.
I pick against the Steelers every week, so I'm the wrong person to ask whether or not the Steelers are still alive, because I would have said no 4 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, and this week.
Yeah, I like it. Remember, we are always brought to you here at the Red Gold and Bold podcast by our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete and David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. David Starnes Allstate Insurance, serving the Kansas City area and all throughout the Midwest. With David Starnes Allstate, it's not just about fender benders. Beyond traditional safeguards, enjoy perks like roadside assistance for unexpected breakdowns, transportation expense coverage when your car is in the shop, auto replacement protection to keep you on the road in style, and much more. You can give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. Visit them online or stop into any of their locations, including North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized, full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Parking lot problems? They've been making them disappear in KC since 1994. Don't risk accidents and liability in your parking lot. Get your lot restriped today. A brightly striped lot will cut down on accidents and keep your lot as safe as possible. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. All right, the undefeated talk is over now, Jeff. Is that a good thing? Was that even a distraction for the Chiefs? Does that give them a singular focus now?
I think it's a positive, and I saw Andy Reid's comments about it, saying he doesn't really get into all that crap. And I think that if you read it, what he was saying, that he didn't want his team getting too far down that road either. It is, no matter how much you try to downplay it as a player or a coach or a team, it's going to be on your mind the more you win, because you're going to get more questions about it. It's going to be part of the, when you're doing your pregame interviews for the networks before they come in, they're going to bring it up, and you're going to feel that weight. And this team wants a three-peat. This team has some young players. It's, as much as people want to look at this like it's college football and it's just, you just reload every year and it's like Alabama or Georgia or Ohio State, these teams that are always having great teams. It's like, you got a lot of guys who've never felt losing, who've never not been in a Super Bowl, who might start thinking it's always going to happen because we're the Chiefs. And you need to have that beaten out of you sometimes. You need to have a reality check. And so I think, losing a game in this fashion to a rival is in some ways a good thing for you, because it makes you look at your flaws a lot more closely than just saying, hey, we're always going to find a way to pull it out. That's who we are as the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if we screw around in the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter. We'll get it done in the fourth quarter because that's what we do. This lets you know that you're human and you can be beaten, right, Sam?
Yeah, you lose the attention to detail, I think, when it always works out in the end. And that's what the Chiefs have done, is they've always worked out in the fourth quarter. And by the way, this isn't just the new players. This is Patrick Mahomes, too.
Yeah.
You look at his first quarter numbers this season, he's got a 62.9 passer rating in first quarters this season. No first quarter touchdowns in 10 games, 5 interceptions. And the fourth quarter this year, he's at 109.9. Like, he is Patrick Mahomes of old in the fourth quarter. That fourth quarter drive they had against the Bills, the open the fourth quarter, is one of the best drives we've seen the Chiefs have all season. And Patrick Mahomes was on one. I mean, he had a couple passes that were ridiculous. Justin Watson made a great catch. Noah Gray made a great adjustment on the touchdown play to curl around and present himself to Mahomes. Like, the Chiefs still have that in them. They need to have it when they don't need to have it. You know what I mean? Like, it can't just be it shows up when you got to have it. That was a must-have drive, and the Chiefs have the urgency. There's no reason they can't have that urgency in the first quarter.
Is the script broken? Right.
I wondered that too. I agree with him.
I brought that up today. Like, is it, like, hey, they figured out, we know that, a big part of what the script is for Andy Reid is to probe the defense. All right, here's what they do when I go 4 go routes. Here's what they do when we run 4 hooks. Here's what they do when we show, power stretch this way. He wants to probe the defense. Is it possible that, it's just like they're on to what his script is? And so that's great. You're trying to figure out what it is, but we know how to stop all the things. We now know what you're going to do, and we're prepared for that, and they're able to jump out on the Chiefs because the script may be telling them what the defense is doing, but it's not moving the football anymore.
Yeah, well, I think what the Bills did, which was noteworthy, is they play a lot more man coverage than the Chiefs were expecting. Like, I think they're usually a predominantly zone team, and they came out and said, we're going to get in your face, and we're going to get up on top of your receivers, and we're going to challenge you. And I think we talked about this before. At some point, you were going to have a team that was going to say, we got to shut down the run first. we got to take away that option, take away Mahomes scrambling, and make them really rely on Hopkins and Kelce, Worthy to win in man coverage. And they had some good plays to Worthy early, but he went away. He started to vanish because they could adjust for that. And I said it last week, this offense is playing in a phone booth. And DeAndre Hopkins is not separating. Travis Kelce is not separating. And when you have teams that are going to challenge them, I think some teams are saying they can't win like they used to. And if they can't win, he doesn't have the time or the ability to go scramble around like he used to, because we can control that as well. So it's a dangerous dynamic for the Chiefs in that way. Like, a big part of what they can do offensively moving forward depends on Xavier Worthy being a reliable deep threat. And I don't know if that's going to happen.
Well, let's talk about the offense getting better, Sam. I mean, Jeff hit on it early on. Well, it's like, wow, Xavier Worthy, this guy's going to really make an impact. And then that was kind of it. It was one drive. I mean, is that what they've got? They've got 4 or 5 plays for him. And then once that's done, it's back to Old Faithful.
Yeah, I mean, Xavier Worthy's production on the stat line has really dipped since the bye, which is this bizarre, contrast to when they decided to get him more involved in the offense, that we've seen his production dip. However, this is not just a Xavier Worthy problem. When you go back and look at the last 5 games alone, Patrick Mahomes on the opening snap against San Francisco has Xavier Worthy wide open deep, the very first snap for a 70-yard touchdown, overthrows him. He's got Xavier Worthy on the sideline against Tampa Bay. Xavier Worthy can't keep his feet in bounds. That is a Xavier Worthy issue. Xavier Worthy beats the coverage, and this time ensures that he's not going to run out of bounds against Denver in the fourth quarter at midfield, and Patrick Mahomes throws the ball out of bounds, misses right. Against Buffalo, he's got him wide open, running across the middle of the field on a corner route and over the seam, and he misses Xavier Worthy to the left. And to me, part of the alarming part of that is that Patrick Mahomes has missed him deep, he's missed him left, and he's missed him right with his throws. And I actually went back and just added in, like, how different would this offense look if you had just completed those 4 passes? And, like, I'm not picking out 4 passes that are, like, hopeful plays. Like, these are wide-ass open plays in NFL terms. And if he completes those 4 passes, his quarterback rating goes from 90 to 100. The Chiefs go from 16th in the league in yards to 1 yard per game, shy of 7th in the league in yards. They go from 11th in points per game to 6th in points per game. Like, just by those 4 plays. And those are wide ass open plays. Like, you have to complete those passes. Like, this is a Worthy and Mahomes combination, but 3 of those 4 routes are very squarely on the quarterback. As much as like Worthy should have gotten his feet down, the touchdown, Soren, you said it on the radio today, the completion is Xavier Worthy's fault. The lack of touchdown is on Patrick Mahomes. Like, that's got to be a touchdown if he throws them open. Like, this isn't asking for a lot to complete those 4 passes. And look how different this offense would look if they had completed them.
And I'll give credit to Adam Dravetta. He said that first, and then I echoed it. But he said it first yesterday, and I think he's right. I think he nailed that situation as to what it is. Can they get better, Jeff? Is it just about Xavier Worthy? And is that just a matter of, listen, I also think is there a trust factor yet in Xavier Worthy? Is he late because he doesn't trust that he's really going to go where he's going to go? So he's waiting for him to come clear out of the route before he throws it, because he's got other routes where this is where he's going to be, and then he doesn't break it off soon enough, or he doesn't take it deep. And I mean, is this just a matter about making sure they're on the same page? And is that the only thing that takes this offense to another level? They did sign Tyquan Thornton, to the practice squad. By the way, the guy that the Patriots traded up to get in the to talk about irony, in the Sky Moore deal.
With the Chiefs pick. Yeah.
They now have both guys, and they both have the same number of catches for the Chiefs this year. They released Cornell Powell. Is that it? Is it all on Xavier Worthy, or was there still some growth for DeAndre Hopkins to get familiar? What do you think?
They're just pilfering Patriots, right? Juju and Uche keep going back to that well. Look, I say it's on Worthy because he creates a dynamic that stresses the defense. When you're talking about, look, it's clear that the farther they go into the season, the more people are going to sit on the routes of Hopkins, the routes of Kelce. Those guys aren't going to beat you over the top. They're not going to beat you after the catch. And so he's the one guy that, in that game, I'm sure Buffalo was like, okay, man, this guy, we got to do something about this. If this guy is making big plays, that's going to be a problem for us the way we want to play this game. But I don't see outside of that, people are hoping for Hollywood Brown. I'm not putting a lot of stock in that. I doubt he's going to come back. If he does come back, make any kind of real impact. But to open up the passing game, and then what Sam is talking about, he misses those throws, not because it's just a bad throw. It's because, hey, I might get killed here. This left tackle is a problem. The right tackle is a problem. I know I only have so much time. And I want to look to Kelce. I want to look to Hopkins. Andy Reid said it. That play that he was open and they missed it, that Patrick saw him late. It wasn't because, it wasn't because it was the play that was supposed to go to him. It was probably because he was the third option. Oh, it broke open. Let's throw it to him. And so there's not enough time to go back there and dissect, look at everything and look at all the ideal options and make the perfect throw. Like this is a sped up offense now. It's a quarterback who feels that. And what's going to change the offense is what changed it last year. It's going to be the play calling. It's going to be the mentality, because you can have all the great plays you want to run, but if you have guys who aren't winning, and this is on Hopkins and Kelce especially, it's going to be hard for them to have a sustained offense.
That's where the actual piece of good news in this whole Xavier Worthy conversation is he's getting open deep. Like, I think a lot of us had questions was, could he break free deep? Because could he break off the line of scrimmage on these deep routes? And teams are certainly going to think, what did Cam Taylor-Britt say going into week 2? I see him running a lot of deep stuff. That's all you have to guard. And guess what? Cam Taylor-Britt had a one-handed interception against Xavier Worthy. Those plays I mentioned, he's wide open. 4 times in the last 5 weeks, we should be talking about a 50-plus yard touchdown for Xavier Worthy. And can you imagine if he had all 4 of those? First of all, it's not just like his stats. We'd be saying, wow, what a great rookie season for Xavier Worthy. But to me, it's more the impact it would have on, Jeff's right about, this offense is now coming down to Kelce winning and DeAndre Hopkins winning, 2 guys who are in their 30s. It'd be a lot easier to win if you respected what's going on, back behind you.
I think that's fair, but I also think this is fair from Ben. He says, let's also acknowledge the other side. Worthy is a busted coverage from having very little receiving yards at all. Yeah. So, if we're going to play the devil's advocate of what What if he doesn't shake loose against the Chargers, right? What if, there's a couple things that can go both ways. He's probably where he deserves to be. Peterson back as OC. They've already got him fired, which looks there. Chiefs need Eric Bieniemy, Dana says. So there's a lot of people looking at it. I mean, I'm with you. And I do think this is of note. Ladd McConkey. I mean,
that was the guy. That was the guy.
We're all beating that drum. Yeah. I know he was my guy at the wide receiver spot. Yeah. This is the guy I'm going to track. Ladd McConkey's playing pretty good football for the Chargers.
And, but to that point, and look, they've done a great job over the last 5 years winning championships and playing building a dynasty. I don't want to take anything away from what they've done. But we've said this before time and again. When you're picking receivers just for one skill set, for one trait that you want to use in certain situations, it's going to bite you at some point. And the Buffalo Bills went out there without Keon Coleman and Dalton Kincaid. Curtis Samuel made plays. The kid, number 10, what's his name? Shakur made plays. Mac Hollins had catches. Dawson Knox. They went deeper into their depth chart and found guys that made plays. McCole Hardman didn't do much of anything.
They didn't go deeper in there. They didn't go quite as deep as the Chiefs did. Yeah. I mean, the Chiefs had Mike Kelly-Indo catching passes.
Yeah. He's got more passes than Sky Moore this year.
But I'm going to come back to an earlier point. They also, Josh Allen wasn't being knocked to the ground, right? Yeah. That helps too, right? That's part of it as well. Yeah. I want to hit one more thing on the offense. Andy Reid said they should run the ball more, or maybe he should have run the ball more, right? That's how he put it.
Yeah, that's what I asked him after the game. Yeah,
right, and that's fine. But I think that is I take that, and maybe they should have. But I take that as a declaration of the limits of the offense. Right, passing is still more efficient. If you ask me, would I rather have them throw the ball or run the ball? I'd rather have them throw the ball in theory. But if you can't make that work, then yeah, you do have to run the ball. So I do think we're, again, to your point, Jeff, about the play calling, and they got to get there, they got to grind it out. They wanted to be high flying again. And I'm with Sam. I think there are some big plays that are being left on the table. And hopefully Worthy, the game's going to slow down just a little bit to where he keeps his feet in bounds. Holmes is going to trust him. Worthy's going to be where he needs to be. And that ball is going to come out earlier, and that plays a touchdown. I hope for that. But in the meantime, they've got to be selective. They have to ground and pound. They have to do the little things too.
So I asked that question, which I think influences his answer, just to put that into context. Like, what did you think of the running game? And he said, yeah, we probably could have used that more. And he's right when you look at the numbers after the game. Their success rate on run plays was 53%. They only run the ball 35%, and they've been above 50 all year long. And they had just decided, it was very clear that the game plan going into that game was this is the passing game's turn. And when you look at the Bills secondary, especially the safeties, I can understand why they thought that. Jeff said this on Friday, like they were getting a cornerback back that hadn't played most of the game that influenced their numbers for the first 10 weeks of the season. But this is a team that has to stay on schedule. And what we saw, the Chiefs are trying to go in after that Xavier Worthy play, and Wanya Morris gets called for a holding. And this didn't used to matter for this team, but that's a drive ender now for this team, because now they're at 1st and 20 and they're behind schedule.
They felt the pressure of a team like the Bills that could get out ahead of them and stay out ahead of them. That's the difference when you want to play that style of football. When you get behind and you feel like you got to keep pace, it's hard to keep with the run game because you want to score points to stay within striking distance.
We're brought to you here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast by our friends at Key Cannabis and our newest sponsor. We want to welcome our friends at Whataburger. Whataburger is proud to sponsor the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. Now at all your KC Whataburger locations, and for a limited time only, get your Whata Wings tossed in any of your favorite flavors, including the new Nashville Hot. Or get your hands on fire you can handle with the all-new, perfectly spicy Bacon Blaze Jalapeno Double. Get a kick this football season with these great new limited-time Whataburger favorites. Stop by any of the Kansas City Whataburger locations today. Whataburger's open 24 hours a day.
Unlock a premium dispensary experience at Key Cannabis. Visit any one of our 12 Key Cannabis locations across Missouri for a huge selection of cannabis products and expert recommendations from Missouri's friendliest bud tenders. Quick service, convenient online ordering, drive-through pickup, and a fantastic loyalty program. Plus, Key Cannabis offers discounts for veterans, med patients, cannabis industry professionals, seniors, first responders, and students. Visit us in KC North, South KC, and Belton. Open 7 days a week, or shop online at keycannabis.com. Key Cannabis, open for premium cannabis experiences.
All right, Jeff, let's talk a little bit about the defense. We got into Chris Jones a little bit, but is he living up to his contract? Let's talk about him. I mean, are we already looking and saying, I know Sam made the point, and I agree. I think less snaps, let's see what he does, if he could be a little bit more rested. But, I bring this up just as there's nothing wrong. I think almost every team in the NFL would have done what they did, but are we 2 years from now going to be looking back? And maybe I'd throw Travis Kelce into this as well and saying, boy, those extensions at the end, they were a couple of years too long. The Chiefs should have been looking to get out. I know they're going for the three-peat, but in the end, are we going to look at that contract and say, that was a problem?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think it was going that direction regardless, just because of the years and the money and the age they gave it to him at. But look, it's a loaded question because, as we've said, he's getting a lot of attention from offensive lines. I think he's doing his part as far as drawing that attention, and you have to have the guys around him deliver when he's getting those double teams. So, I mean, he's not Superman. Like, he's not going to, or King Kong, he's not going to walk out there and rip off somebody's head and drink the blood from their hypothalamus or something and get a sack. It's just like I think he's doing the best he can. The problem is, he's playing a lot of snaps. They're not having a lot of help around him. And he also is dealing with a secondary that is – Steve Spagnuolo can't call the games in the same way he called them last year. And so the opportunities for those big splash plays aren't going to be there because quarterbacks know if we take care of that guy, we're pretty good throwing the football.
Besides wondering which King Kong movies Jeff was watching with that description there, the coverage – Sam, is that what was really exposed?
Yeah, but I mean, look, this isn't Steve Spagnuolo was wondering about this group before Jalen Watson got hurt. And Jalen Watson won this job for a reason. Like, this isn't the group that the Chiefs had planned on having this year. And it turns out that Jalen Watson was one of their most valuable players this year. What's really ironic is we've seen two players that have emerged as really valuable because of who's backing them up. Jalen Watson and Wanya Morris. Because you never knew how valuable Wanya Morris was until Kingsley Suamataia stint last week. You didn't know how valuable Jalen Watson was, and he was playing great football through the 5 weeks. We all recognize that until what's gone on these past couple of weeks. Like, the Bills came out and said, we want to go after 13. Like, that's the guy in the field we want to try and pick on. And that tape's out there now. And I wonder if it might be time for us to see Joshua Williams get a turn this week in Carolina.
Interesting. I think he looked pretty good in the past. Najee Johnson had a lot of tackles because he gave up a lot of catches this past week. And so, I think it probably is time to give him a try. What do we think? DeAndre Hopkins and Travis Kelce. This was supposed to be one against a mediocre defense, Jeff, where they got real healthy. And 2 catches for 8 yards out of Travis Kelce, just 3 catches for DeAndre Hopkins. Concern level there is what?
Oh, high. Like, I don't know if the Bills defense is mediocre. I think they're a little better than that. But yeah, I think that it's pretty clear that the big day that Hopkins had against Tampa Bay had more to do with Tampa Bay having a rookie cornerback on him a lot and one big catch, really, that one-handed catch, where that catch he made down the field with 3 guys on him. But you look at that, and I think we thought that Denver locking him down had more to do with Pat Surtain being on him. This was an indictment. This to me showed you that. And it's interesting because when they traded for him, Chase Daniel was on this show he does on Fox talking about him, and I saw he made a pretty prescient statement. He said if the Chiefs use Hopkins in the slot, he can be pretty dangerous there. But you put him outside, he's pretty limited in what he can run. It's pretty much slant, hitch, and go. And the go really isn't much of an option because he can't really run. And so when he's on the field and not in the slot, I don't think he's much of a factor. And certainly Travis, for all the talk we've had about him, the connection. And I said it too last week. Terrell Bernard playing this game for the Buffalo Bills was big because he didn't play in that playoff game. And their whole game plan was when Mahomes scrambled and got loose, go find Travis because they're looking for him. And they were able to take that away. So, yeah, I think that they have to have some big questions about both those guys right now.
Yeah. Where's your level of concern, Sam?
About where it was before the game, I think. I mean, look, I guess my expectations for Hopkins were not that he was going to come in here and be a number one wide receiver, even if he was this team's best wide receiver. I mean, a quote unquote number one. I did not have those expectations from him. He's still at 1.8 like yards per route run. He's even better than that for the Chiefs. He's above 2 this year for the Chiefs. Like, he's in line with his career average over the 4 games with the Chiefs. Like, you've gotten what you wanted out of DeAndre Hopkins for 4 games. I think the most interesting thing about DeAndre Hopkins was they kind of split it. Like, Juju Smith-Schuster just cut directly into his snaps, and like, that's it. And we had talked about on Friday that these two guys being out on the same field probably wasn't going to happen all that frequently. It happened a little bit, but not much at all. So, like, that's not a surprising part. But the fact that they needed to get Juju Smith-Schuster out there, like, for over a third of the snaps at the expense of DeAndre Hopkins, that surprises me because, to me, DeAndre Hopkins is a guy that can go up and get – look, he almost comes down with the pass, and I realize almost doesn't count. But that's not a play for any other Chiefs wide receiver. Like, that's an interception probably coming back the other way if any other Chiefs wide receiver is involved in that play. I just think, like, he's proven that he's the guy you got to have out on the field more often.
Well, I'd come back to what Jeff said. They've got to embrace what they are. And what they are is they need Juju. And if Juju's healthy, they need Juju and DeAndre Hopkins out there. When Justin Watson got his catch, one of my buddies like, well, there's the token Justin Watson, throw. Got to have that. Got to get him in there. Got to get everybody a touch. And I understand that, Andy, part of that is to let the defense put pressure on the defense that everybody is a legit target. Everybody could end up.
10 guys caught passes in that game for him.
And they love to beat that drum when they're winning. Right? They love to beat that drum about how Pat spreads the ball around and look how they're getting. And I think sometimes, and like I said, there is a reason to do that. But the main thing is still the main thing. Move the chains, get the ball in the end zone. Not to make sure all 10 guys get it. Not to keep Travis Kelce's 2-catch streak alive. Not like at some point, that if you're going to let the 1,000-yard streak go by, then let the 2-catch streak go by as well. The main thing needs to be the main thing. And if that means Juju Smith-Schuster and DeAndre Hopkins are on the field, and it's with Xavier Worthy to stretch things deep, and those guys work underneath, then that's what you got to do. Noah Gray was the more explosive tight end. Let's be clear in this game.
Yeah.
He made bigger plays.
I'm gonna underscore what Jeff said with some numbers here about DeAndre Hopkins and playing in the slot versus out wide. The Chiefs have used him in the slot a lot more than Tennessee did, because I'm sure they recognize that same thing on tape is, when you give this guy a chance to win off the line of scrimmage and he's one-on-one, like, he's pretty good. When he's got to have more, separation on the outside, it becomes a little bit more difficult. And in week, scratch out the first week that DeAndre Hopkins plays when he's just been here for 3 days, and look at the next 2 games. He plays 16 snaps in the slot and 11 snaps in the slot. So 27 over 2 weeks. Against the Bills, he played 6 times in the slot. That's it. They moved him out wide again against the Bills, and they didn't play him as much. I mean, his snap count goes from 35 pass plays to 32 pass plays to 22. Like, I think the Chiefs, in part of this evaluation of their own game against the Bills, need to be saying that guy's got to be on the field more frequently than he was.
Yeah. By the way, there's a little discussion going on. Like somebody said here, Ben said Veach's track record would get him fired on most teams. He's essentially Chris Ballard, who was on the hot seat in Indy. Picking like 17 to 20 spots later in every single round.
Yeah, he's picking at the end of every round. I mean, this injury stuff that they've had on offense would decimate most teams. Yes. Like the fact that we are talking about this team tonight specifically with the bar that they've set. If we're talking about this team at the bar that the average NFL team is set, this is like 8 topics of praise. And a lot of that praise would be, look at the way that they've made up for the fact that they lost Hollywood Brown. Yeah. They lost Rashee Rice was leading the NFL in receiving this year. And by the way, that's one of Veach's draft picks.
Yes. Yeah. Blake said the 22 Chiefs draft is one of the best of any team in recent memory. What are we talking about?
It's accurate.
I think that's a little bit more accurate.
Yeah.
Speaking of accurate, if you need an accurate insurance agent, I was trying to find a good way to segue into David Starnes Allstate Insurance. David Starnes Allstate Insurance. Elevate your coverage, elevate your confidence, and drive worry-free. Covering all the important things in your world: home, business, life, and even the fun stuff, as well as your motorcycle, boat, ATV, and you name it. Get with Dave, and he'll get you covered. You can give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. Visit them online or stop into any of their locations: North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. Don't put those insurance needs off any longer. Get with Dave today. He'll give you peace of mind for the things in your life most important to you. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized, full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Parking lot problems? They've been making them disappear in KC since 1994. Don't risk accidents and liability in your parking lot. Get your lot restriped today. A brightly striped lot will cut down on accidents and keep your lot as safe as possible. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. All right, let's talk a little more about Xavier Worthy. He didn't get the feed in bounds. He did get open. What is the expectation now? Like, he did show more in this first drive, Jeff. What's the expectation now for what he will be here moving forward? The rest of this year,
get the feed in bounds, catch the ball.
Because this is right here is where Rashee Rice took off.
Yeah, but look, Rashee Rice was different in that because of his skill set, they could throw him the ball 2 yards off the line of scrimmage and he can make something happen with it. Xavier really needs the ball going down the field. So there's more variables that play into him being successful. And so, I don't think he's going to have the same kind of impact in the second half that Rashee Rice had for that reason. But I was encouraged. I think the catch in traffic that he made, took a big shot, was big. I thought there was a tough catch he made in the middle of his own defense that was, it showed his spatial awareness. And so obviously those were plays that were scripted for him and they practiced, they were earlier in the game. But you hope that they are able to take some of that and expand upon it this year and moving forward. I still think he's going to be a good player. I think people temper their expectations about what he is. Best case scenario, he becomes what Jameson Williams is in Detroit. But Jameson Williams, if you watched him in college, was a completely different receiver. They're about the same size guy. Jameson Williams is about 175 pounds, maybe 5'10", 5'11", and Xavier Worthy is about that same size. But Jameson Williams is a way more polished receiver and had to work on his route running and his maturity, and he got there. But it took 3 years for it to happen. And so I think he can get there. I don't think it's happening this year.
Sam?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really on the same page with Jeff on this. I mean, I can't recall the last time I saw a receiver with such an estranged relationship with the sideline before. But it's cost him 2 significant plays this year. And I was actually surprised the Chiefs went away from him because he was their most effective offensive player in the game. And I realized that play is a really bad look on tape. But to me, and I've said it before, it's more on the quarterback than is the wide receiver, even if it is also on the wide receiver. But he was working. And the Bills didn't have an answer for him. I will say there were a couple plays where the ones where Mahomes got pressured on key sacks. When you go back and look, and Xavier Worthy is going to spring open on the play, and the sack is what prevented that. So perhaps he was as significantly involved in the second half, but Mahomes was getting pressured a pretty decent amount.
I think the next 2 games, the Chiefs need to kick some ass. I mean, I think they need to feel good about themselves. I think they need to get Carolina down. I think they need to get the Raiders down. I think they need to lean on them, and I think they need to pour it on because I think they need to gain confidence in what they're doing. And so I think they need to feel like, we're special, because I think it's pretty easy. I know it's just 1 loss, but I think it's kind of easy. The other losses haven't been pretty, and I think it'd be nice to have a pretty win. Also Rex Ryan was beating the drum, and I think it's a fair drum to beat about how their point differential is like 48-49, where it's like 150, 160 for Detroit. There's an element of you play all those close games. Good teams find a way to win close games, but in the playoffs, you play other good teams. So, they can do it too. Right. So I think you'd like to, increase the margin of error. And I think you can do that by getting Xavier Worthy the football. And I think they have to incorporate him more because he is the one guy that can make an explosive play, with the exception of maybe Isaiah Pacheco coming back and maybe they get it on the ground.
Yeah, but even him coming off an injury, you have to wonder what he's going to be. How explosive can he be with that time off and that kind of injury? But to go back to Worthy, I mean, really, when you're a quarterback, you're trying to throw the football deep. The thing you're looking at is the safeties, where they move to. That dictates if you make that throw or not. if they're even moving in that direction, he's not getting those passes thrown his way. But I think, to be honest with you, I don't think that they're going to be able to go out here and blow anybody out the way they play football because they don't get turnovers on defense. Teams know now that they can control the football against them, and so that's going to be harder to do. And they play a methodical style, and so I think every game they play is going to be close. Even Carolina's, even the Raiders, they played them. The Raiders played them close the first time. I don't think there's any team out there where they're going to go out there and beat them 41-7. That's not happening this year.
Yeah, I do agree that. By the way, weren't you the one that said their takeaways when you're talking about a defense? Their takeaways.
Yeah, forcing turnovers. Yeah, their takeaways. Yeah, forcing turnovers. Yeah.
I just want to make sure.
They are.
I thought I remember you chastising.
Yeah, I want to see one. I haven't seen one in a while from this defense.
I mean, come on, they had one.
Well, they
had one last game.
They get one. Yeah, that's right.
Down if that one really counts.
How they shape up for the 1 seed, but where are they amongst the NFL's best teams? Like, where do they rank now, Jeff? Where would you put them? Like,
they still
Detroit 1.
They still beat. I think Detroit 1, Buffalo 2, KC 3.
Okay,
it's after that you're talking about Philadelphia. I think the Ravens have slipped. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are probably the 5th. I have to probably put them in the top 5, given that they just beat Baltimore. But look, there's only one great team this year, and it's the Detroit Lions. They're the only team that's going to go out there and embarrass people if you're not like what they did to Jacksonville. They've had 3 or 4 40-plus point games. They can tear you apart in a moment's notice. Everybody else is in that. If they're an A team, everybody else is in the B+ to B- category. That includes the Chiefs. I mean, I think that that's not a bad place to be. I think they can still win a championship doing in that level, but they're not the best team in the league.
And the 5 INT game for Jared Goff was a win, and a win against the Texans, right?
Yeah, on the road, yeah.
So I mean, that speaks to their resiliency and ability to win even when things aren't going good. I mean, I do think Detroit being the number 1 team right now, I'm fine with that. I think it's there. I think they've earned that. Detroit 1, Buffalo 2, Kansas City 3, and then Steelers, Ravens, or Steelers, Eagles, Steelers. Yeah, Eagles, Steelers, Ravens. I would say there's 4 in the AFC. I know the Texans are going to be there, and I think they're a good, solid team.
Steelers
might be able to beat one of these teams. One, they're not going to beat 3 of them, right? Yeah. I think we're talking 6 teams out of those. If I gave you the field, and I took those 6 teams, I'd have to give you 4-1 odds.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys have the Steelers too high. I mean, I still think the Chargers are a better team than the Steelers are. I think the Chargers are
fine with that.
A very formidable team. I mean, Detroit. Jeff's right about Detroit. I mean, Detroit is, first of all, they have. I know you guys aren't crazy about DVOA. They've got number 2 DVOA offense, number 2 defense, and they're number 1 in special teams. That's a pretty good football team. I still think the Chiefs and Bills are in the 2 to 3, and this may be too high for you guys. I still think Baltimore is really good. Not judging just based on last week's result, I still think Baltimore is a better team than the Steelers. If the Chiefs had to face one of those 2 teams at Arrowhead in the playoffs, they would rather face Pittsburgh than they would Baltimore. And I think they'd rather face the Steelers than they would the Chargers as well. The Chargers always play them tough. And so that might be one that's a difference between power rankings versus rankings specifically against the Chiefs, teams that could potentially give the Chiefs more problems. But with that quarterback, I think that's a tiebreaker for me. And I think the Chargers are in, probably in that top 6-7 range as well.
I think quarterback.
None of us mentioned the Vikings, by the way.
No, because they're falling apart. I did a spot with ESPN, and I talked about quarterback and coach. And I do think Russell Wilson has steadied the ship in Pittsburgh, and I think Mike Tomlin's a badass. And so I am higher on the Steelers than you are. But I also think that they're a team. I think they look like a team that could win 1 or 2 games and then come up short. Like, I don't know that they can make that run, but the run would look a lot like the Chiefs' run last year, right? Like, I mean,
they're very Titans-like from 2019, 2000, whatever, the year 2020, 21 when they had the top seed. Like, they'd be a flawed 1 seed.
Yeah, there is an element of that. Like we said, we want to welcome our newest sponsor, Whataburger, proudly sponsoring the Red, Gold, and Bold. Now at all your KC Whataburger locations, and for a limited time only, get your Whata Wings tossed in any of your favorite flavors, including the new Nashville Hot. You can get them for your tailgating as well with the Whata Wing bundles, the Whata Wings Party Pack as well. So if you're headed out to tailgate, swing by Whataburger and grab those. So you can get your hands on fire you can handle with the all-new perfectly spicy bacon blaze jalapeno double as well. Stop by any of Kansas City Whataburger locations today. Whataburger's open 24 hours a day. We're brought to you by David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. Give his crew a call at 816-781-7331. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, solving Kansas City's parking lot problems for 30 years. They're online at GannAsphalt.com, and our friends at Key Cannabis. Key Cannabis offers discounts for veterans, med patients, cannabis industry professionals, seniors, first responders, and students. Visit them in North Kansas City, South KC, and Belton. They're open 7 days a week. You can shop online at keycannabis.com. So for Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network and NFL.com, Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star, my name is Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Red, Gold, and Bold. We will see you Friday at 10 a.m. Central.